This is definitely a jolt to IPL, which has happened, the news which broke out today morning.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Gautam from Gulf News. We are back here with a special edition of Straight Bat with Mr. Cricket UAE Anis Sajan. Along with me is my colleague Shyam Krishna. Welcome to all of you. We are deeply concerned with something breaking on the field of IPL, where we have heard this morning that two KKR players, Varun Chakravarti and Sandeep Warrier, they have tested positive. So this is for the first time in living memory that any match of IPL had to be postponed. So their match against RCB has been postponed. And along with that comes the news that now in Delhi, where a fair number of matches are still to be played, a certain number of ground staff have tested positive, much like what happened in Mumbai before the event was due to begin. Now, we are halfway in the middle of the league right now. Right now, matches are being played in Delhi and Ahmedabad before the bandwagon moves to Kolkata and Bengaluru. Now, my first question to Anis will be, what do you think the IPL should do? Should postponing a match be enough? Or shouldn't they rush into any panic step? What should be their step forward, Anis?
Hello, Gautam. Hello, Shyam, and hello, all the Gulf News community. Well, this is definitely a jolt to IPL, which has happened, the news which broke out today morning. Now, when you ask me, should they postpone the match only for one day, or should it be taking a little more time? And I'll be very honest and upfront. They have to ensure that the IPL doesn't begin at least, or it's paused for minimum a week. Now, the reason I'm saying for a week is with the way this virus works, that today if I come negative, it doesn't guarantee that I might not come positive after 2-3 days. So in such a scenario, not risking everybody who are involved in this IPL, whether it is the players or the support staff, whoever who have got tested positive, everybody has to be done 3 tests before they start the IPL. Now, suppose we pause it for a week, you might think, how are we going to get the matches done? That's the only simple formula is that they'll have to play double headers and get it done. But if you want to save the IPL and to continue without any headaches, and just to ensure that India is not dented with another headache of this IPL, because already people are talking about the World Cup has to be shifted. I'm sure Saurav Ganguly and his team and Mr. Amin would make sure that everything is taken into place before the next match is called up. They cannot do the mistake what the PSL did, that they made a match played in spite of the players getting positive.
Yeah. So, Shyam, I'll come to you. We were discussing about it a little while back. What the affected team KKR has done, they are now saying that their cycle of testing they're going to do virtually every day. Along with that comes a double jolt as the news of the ground stuff has come in. I mean, this is something which you normally don't factor in among the stakeholders. You talk about the players, you talk about the officials, etc. So what do you think? Because it seems that stopping it for about a week so that there is no ripple effect sounds a practical suggestion, provided the further international fixtures or whatever there which follows, because it's such a tight window. That is the only area of concern. But these are extraordinary circumstances. So what do you feel, Shyam? I mean, do you think that can be a way ahead?
What you said is absolutely true here, because these are extraordinary circumstances, and extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary measures. One extraordinary measure which suggested by Anis is playing double headers after taking a pause. But I get the feeling that a 1 week's pause may not help. We might need at least 2 weeks. Because if you look at, it's not just the players. We have already heard that Chakravarti and Sandeep Warrior in Kolkata Knight Riders have been affected. But there is also news that Pat Cummins is in isolation. So we still haven't got the full extent of the news because unless more testing and more, because they want to avoid false positives, so they would definitely have more rounds of testing. So we would know only the full extent of the problem a little later. Now, it's not just KKR. If you look at CSK also have problem. They have the CEO Kasi Vishwanath is affected. The bowling coach Balaji is affected. These are people who are in contact with players. So which means the players have to be tested, and we still haven't got the results of the players, whether it's positive or negative. So which means that is again another question mark which is lingering. Then the ground staff. See, I don't know how much of the ground staff is part of the bubble, but I would believe that they should and would be the part of the bubble. But if 5 people of the ground staff have contracted COVID, and you have to remember the fact that Rajasthan Royals and Sunrisers Hyderabad played a match there. I mean, they would have definitely come in contact with some of the players. So, which means you have to test the entire squad of Rajasthan Royals and the Sunrisers Hyderabad. So when do you get some clarity on this? It's not a day speak. It will take like Anis said, according to the COVID virus cycle, it will take at least a week to get a clarity on that. So I am looking at something like a fortnight's break before they resume, if they really want to resume. But like we said earlier, they would rather finish it, because having started it and having crossed the halfway stage, they would finish it. But it will need extraordinary measures.
Yes, you see, the problem is when the IPL was being held in the UAE. I mean, that time before the matches started, there were a number of cases. But the difference is, at that point, we were at a stage where we could have done some kind of contact tracing, Anis. I mean, we could. I remember with the Chennai players and officials, it was being spoken about that they had an unscheduled camp of about 3 to 4 days in Chennai before they took off for the UAE. And that's where this problem happened. But here it's now, it's no longer a secret that, we are having a kind of community transmission here. So where, despite this, watertight bubble, where there are a lot of contingency plans in place, like if, from what I heard, from you, Shyam, that somebody like Varun Chakravarti, he contacted the virus apparently when he was taken to the hospital for a scan. Now, the kind of paraphernalia that they have set up, the moment a guy is going out of the bubble, be it a player or anybody, this kind of a complicated step-by-step procedure whereby he is allowed back in to the bubble. But what we saw was Chakravarti was playing matches. He'd been one of their key players. So we didn't see him, being in isolation or being in quarantine during the tournament. So it's very difficult to get the right picture from here. Now, the only point, again, I'll come back to Anis, that if we look at a break of about 7 days or 14 days, is with the for overseas professionals. You see, it's been less than a week where we had an exodus of 3 Australians. Then Adam Zampa, initially he went on to criticize the bubble, saying that he felt vulnerable. But then later, though, on going back, he has now issued a statement that that wasn't the case. He was looked after well. Now, in trying to extend the duration of the tournament, then if there is a kind of resentment from the overseas professionals and they say that now they won't be able to fly back also. So it's a very sensitive situation. So what would be, as I said, that one way is the 7-day pause. The other thing is daily testing. So I come back to Anis. What do you think is practical? Because there is a heavy commitment to be made. You cannot cut down on the number of venues also at this point, that you do the rest of the matches in Delhi and Ahmedabad and get over with it. You can't do. So what do you think is the way forward if stopping it for 7 days is not possible?
With a few players already going away, like Zampa going away and Tai going away, and there's another player a couple of players who did not turn up. you see, already the fear was there. And I remember telling to you in one of my shows on radio or television, I don't remember, is that, when you travel from one city to another city, you are going by a chartered flight. But however, you are traveling by a chartered flight, you might be in your peak, but you don't know the air hostess or the people who are addressing you. Are they in that bubble? If they come in touch with you, because today the virus is so bad in India, unfortunately, that it can catch either through the air or through just, even if I stand, I don't know how it works, but the fact is that it's risking when you go from venue to venue. Now, when you talk about the apprehension in the minds of players, definitely all the foreign players must have been jolted. And I wouldn't be surprised that players panic and press that button that no, we want to go back. We are not feeling safe anymore. So to me, as much as I said in my starting statement that 7 days, or Sham said 2 weeks, to me, foreign players staying back looks to be a bit of a doubt. It might be like a statement which I'm making, but I wouldn't be surprised if foreign players now feel that now this is the time we need to get out of the bubble. You need to go home.
Yes, but the problem here is, like Australia, if these players today go back, they will be risking a heavy fine. In fact, there is a kind of jail term which is in place.
I heard about it.
Yeah, because right now, Australia is no home. So this is the kind of situation which is honestly beyond anybody's control. Now, Sham, I'll come back to you. See this, there is strictly no comparison really, because in PSL, you see, they've got a smaller window. They operate within a 3-week window. The IPL operates in a 7-week window. The number of players involved is more. And it's an enemy. It's a kind of fighting an invisible enemy. I mean, from what I've gathered, really the bubble is, right from the hotel to the kind of, there is a kind of template which is now put in place. But even then, if players are getting infected, there are already, talk about, whether the IPL has been sensitive enough in continuing with the games in these times. Right now, you've got an additional trouble. So can we really bargain for handling these two and continuing with the IPL? I mean, what are the options do they have?
Whether it's insensitive or inappropriate, we are past that stage now. If we were sensitive enough, we wouldn't have had the IPL at this time, because now it's not a time to discuss that. Because now with the IPL halfway stage, that question does not stand. It's not valid anymore. Right now, what can be done about it? When you said about PSL and IPL, I think you can't compare both, because both are the sheer magnitude of the events are different. So I wouldn't go near PSL. IPL, I think Anis went to great lengths to explain about the biobubbles and the possible breach of it. See how secure it brings the whole question of how secure is a biobubble. To me, even the most secure of stuff, there can be a chink there. If it is man-made, there can be a chink here, which is very much exposed in the case of Chakravarti. They say they use the green channel to get there, and all. That's all. I think basically papering over the problem. So these kind of chinks are bound to be there, and I understand even the IPL guys also understand the risk they take, but it's a risk they take because of so much is at stake there, so they would ignore such a risk. And when you ignore such a risk, this is what happens. If you look at right now, I think even in the figures, we are not seeing the magnitude of problem. See, look at how many teams are affected here. It's KKR, it is CSK, it is Rajasthan Royals, it is Sunrise Hyderabad. Four teams, that is half the side is affected. So is it feasible to continue at this pace? I don't think so. It's not the question of being insensitive or inappropriate. It's a question of common sense.
Right. Yes, I mean, by and large, there seems to be, the gravity of the problem is slowly descending on us. I would like to ask Anis here. I mean, we have heard this talk about the T20 World Cup, whether it's going to be shifted from India to the UAE. Now, in light of what has been happening, I mean, BCCI definitely wanted to use the IPL as a kind of test case because they are due to conduct the T20 World Cup later this year. Now, that is something which is still about 6 months away. What would be, I mean, as an organizer, what would be the right step in this case? We come back to the same question. I mean, one, play it absolutely safe. I think a 7-day moratorium on the action to see whether things are okay, maybe still a practical one, or if required, more by talking to all parties concerned, by taking the players into confidence. Right now, the concept of tests, which we keep hearing in India, I mean, that seems to be the kind of only way out to restore that element of confidence back in the players, because that's very important. When we see them before the match or after the match, the players are, humans. I mean, they need to bond, and that's all about sport. If you say that, like you can't even hug each other, that was the premise with which when sports started last year, that was the thing, that you don't hug, don't do the high fives. But these things have again come back over a period of time because players are, by and large, they feel they have the sense of security that this is my group, I'm in the bubble, nothing will happen to me. So once there is a kind of dent in that confidence, then is it can a player operate, Anis? That's my question in a team sport.
I'll first answer your first question, which you asked me about the India had planned this IPL. Rather, I remember it was a test to see whether India can pull off the IPL with the World Cup coming in. This definitely is a dent in India holding the World Cup, that there have been cases come out. And I should not be using the word, it's not only a dent, but probably I feel the ICC would now think twice before handing over the World Cup to India, unless they can turn this around and get this IPL done and dusted. To me, which at the moment looks a bit unlikely. Now, the second part you mentioned to me about the players, like initially there was a protocol that you just can't even tap each other's hand, you just need to do fist pumps, and now players are even hugging because they feel that they were secured in the bubble. And everything was fine. If you see even the last IPL and the series which happened in India, the India-England series, it was all taken care in the bubble because they were staying at one venue. Because I think the matches happened in Chennai and Ahmedabad. I think both these series happened in Chennai, Ahmedabad. I think only the last ODI series happened, to my knowledge, was in Pune. But now with 8 teams and 4 teams are at one venue and 4 teams are at other venue, and if a mistake by anybody, whether it is a ground staff, whether it is a hotel staff, or whether it is a player breaching the biosecure bubble, automatically puts the whole IPL into a problem. And that is what has happened this time. I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to point fingers who has done it. As of now, we only understand about Varun Chakravarti's name coming out, that he had gone for a scan through the green channel. But like you mentioned, that there is a problem with the CSK team also, where they have also, the ground staff has tested, and not to forget, even Balaji's name has come out. So how that has happened? There must be something that somebody has come in touch with who has breached the bio bubble. So it's now a catch-22 situation for the BCCI and its organizers, how they are going to get out of this jail. I would use the word jail because this is really hit the IPL. Like, I know there is no comparison between PSN and IPL, but that was actually a learning lesson which IPL should have taken, that this had happened in PSL. They were breach of the bio bubble, where they were using the same hotel, where the staffs, there were marriages being conducted, the players were taking selfie. Okay, all this has not happened here, but they could have taken probably a stricter measure, as Mr. Amin mentioned, that no, we'll take good care of the players. But I'm afraid they have missed something in taking care. That is the reason these cases have happened. Otherwise, If you are in a strict bio bubble, I don't think you can catch the contact of a virus. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I mean, we can discuss about a lot of things with the benefit of hindsight. They were initially, when they were planning, when they decided that IPL this year will be held in India. Initially, there was talk that they'll just use the 3 stadiums available in Mumbai, and along with that, maybe use either Pune or Ahmedabad. But then, as I said, that they wanted to use this as a test case for the T20 World Cup, because things were relatively better by the end of the year. I mean, when this the panic had died down, number of cases had trickled down to a bare minimum for a big country like this. But even then, the way they have planned this schedule, I mean, they call it, when I was speaking to the Star Sports chief, he said that they call it a cluster caravan, whereby each team and all stakeholders will just be taking 4 flights to complete the tournament. But in between this, we have got this. So I think, it is better left to the best wisdom of IPL, and along with, they should take this Indian government in confidence if need be, and find a way without, compromising on the health and welfare of the players and all the stakeholders. We should leave a blotch on a huge brand as this. Thank you, Anis, for joining me. Thank you, Sham, and keeping our fingers crossed on the fate of IPL for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gautam.
Thank you, Gautam. But before you go, I just wanted to ask you one thing. You are in Calcutta, and there is a venue in Calcutta where they are planning. How are the cases in Calcutta? I mean, can you just inform our viewers that how are the cases? Like, I know Mumbai is going through a bad time, Delhi is going through a bad time, so is Bangalore. But what about Calcutta?
Yes, I mean, see, the next two legs are in Calcutta and Bangalore, and in both places the situation is quite grim. Calcutta, they have just kind of got over protracted state elections, where there were a lot of, you may have read something, there have been charges again that how the election commission could continue such a long election to take place, because in India, election rallies would mean across the parties, that is immaterial. Election rallies would mean people, and where there would be flouting of social distancing norms. So that has been blamed to some extent. So right now, what has happened is Calcutta, which is whenever Kolkata Knight Riders used to play here, you had a very demanding set of fans here, But right now, the mood is little low, but I'm sure, when the teams come here and the action takes place, then, it should be lifted to an extent. But talking about the situation, it's not good. Right now, we have about, daily reported cases are about 16, anywhere between 16 to 17,000.
In Calcutta?
In West Bengal, in the state of West Bengal. In Calcutta itself, it will be something like 2 to 3,000 a day.
All right. This is what I wanted to know, because I know Bangalore is also grim, and so is Ahmedabad. So it looks a bit tough for the IPL organizers, but we hope they will be able to find some way. We will only come to know with time.
Yes,
sorry, Gautam. It's not just this cities. If you take India in total, it's an average of 3 million a day, isn't it?
4 lakhs cases a day. It's been coming in.
No, it's about
400,000. Yes,
it has come down marginally, say about 20-25,000 to 3 lakhs 65,000. That is not saying much. So this trend, I mean, as Sham, you know the subject. I mean, then once it reaches the peak, and by the time it starts coming down, so one has to hope for the best. And as far as IPL is concerned, the positive thing about them is they are not affecting. They are trying to do things at a like behind closed doors. There is no social distancing is maintained. I mean, there is no crowd, there is no media, so that's the best that they can do. But now that they are confronted with this situation, we'll really have to keep our fingers crossed and see what kind of a solution they have in mind. Are we going to see tomorrow's match on schedule? But yes, I mean, since the teams are, 4 teams are in 2 of the venues, unlike in the past where teams would be always in transit, there is always a scope of increasing the number of double headers and doing it, the logistics of the broadcasters and advertisers permitting. But these are extraordinary circumstances. So we will hope they'll find a way around this for the tournament to continue.
All right. Thanks, Gautam. Thanks, Shyam.
Thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Anis.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. Take care.